Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Functional for Life podcast, where we explore all things health, try to provide you with helpful and useful information that's going to enrich your life, give you the tools that you need to be healthier, be more successful, and make those progress steps towards your goals. We also want to talk about the four pillars, at least what I believe are some of the four pillars of lifelong functional health, which are mindset, meals, mobility, and movement. I am your host, Coach Joe Carlson, and today we are going to be diving into the second pillar, meals. So we're going to be talking about nutrition, not just a diet, but as a lifestyle. So let's start with the fundamental understanding of what nutrition is. It is the science that interprets the nutrients and other substances in food in relation to the maintenance, growth, reproduction, health, and disease of an organism. I know, sciencey talk, right? But includes food intake, absorption of that food, assimilation, biosynthesis, catabolism, and excretion. So these are all important concepts in the study of nutrition. A lot of science talk and stuff with that. We will get into a little bit of science on things, but I also want to keep it accessible to you. So if you are not into all the science jargon, I don't want to be jargonish. So we're just going to give you some basics information, and hopefully it'll be easily understood and hope applicable as well to your life. So the importance of nutrition, it can't really be overstated. Nutrition is the fuel that keeps our bodies running. It is the building blocks that our bodies need to grow and repair themselves, and is also part of the defense system that helps protect us from diseases. If you are not getting adequate nutrition, your immune system cannot operate the way that it needs to in order to be able to protect you from diseases. Also, if you eat certain things or you have an overabundance of certain things or a lack of certain things, that can end up contributing to disease states. Now, let's explore 5 different areas pertaining to nutrition. First, we'll discuss the science behind nutrition. So nutrition science, it's a field filled with complexity, primarily because the human body is very complex. But one thing that we know for sure is that certain diets can affect chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes. For instance, a study published in the journal Diabetologia found that a low carbohydrate, high protein diet can help manage type 2 diabetes and lead to improvements in glycemic control and cardiovascular risk factors, which is heart disease risk factors. Nutrition, it's a complex field studying the interactions between both organisms and the food they consume. So specifically for us and the food that we consume. It explores how different nutrients, including proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and minerals, function within the body to support overall health and well-being. The main objectives of nutrition science are to explain the physiological and metabolic responses of the body to diet or what you eat, understand the role of nutrients in disease prevention, and promote health through dietary recommendations. So that's where those government dietary recommendations come in and why they've changed so much over time. Here's some crucial aspects of nutrition. I'm going to give you 5 different ones. The first one is macronutrients. So you've probably heard macros or macronutrients before. If you haven't, this is what they are. They include proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. I know that you've heard of those 3. They're on every label for everything that you go into the supermarket for, and as well as some other things, but those are the primary ones. They are called the macronutrients because the body needs them in larger amounts, so macro is big. Proteins are essential for growth in your tissue and repair. Carbohydrates also provide the body's primary energy source, and fats help in energy storage, including insulating the body and protection of vital organs. That's why if you are trying to lose weight and you are trying to get shredded for a bodybuilding competition, you're never going to get to 0% body fat because there is a vital amount of visceral or internal fat that it needs to be there in order to protect you and keep you alive for your vital organs. So never try to lose all of that fat. It's actually healthy for you. Second one, micronutrients. These include vitamins and minerals. They're needed in smaller amounts, so that's the micro part, smaller, but are still essential for proper body function. So they play a crucial role in various body functions such as immunity, bone health, fluid balance. So like where the fluid is in your body versus like the veins versus in your tissues, interstitial or in between the fluid places. So that can lead to edema, which is swelling, which you may have noticed or you've heard of in people who have some disease conditions, swelling in their ankles and things like that, and several other processes. Third one, digestion and absorption. So the body breaks down consumed food, which is the digestion, to its basic nutrient components through digestion. The body then absorbs these nutrients and utilizes them for energy, growth, and cellular repair, which is the absorption part of it. Digestion starts at your mouth, goes all the way down. So it's actually not just stuff that happens in your stomach and in your intestines. It all actually begins at your mouth. So Chewing is an important part of digestion, is a very important part. And then if you do not chew enough, you're going to cause more issues for the rest of your digestion farther down along the line. We'll talk a little bit about mindful eating a little bit farther down, but essentially mindful eating does include chewing your food a little bit more, because if you can break down those large pieces of food in your mouth so that it is not so much trouble for the rest of your digestive system, you'll be able to digest a lot better. You'll be able to absorb your nutrients better, and you'll have less of a little bit of trouble down there, right? So you won't have as much gastrointestinal distress. You won't have as much gas and bloating, maybe some little bit of pain or discomfort. So make sure you chew your food. Number 4, metabolism. This is the process by which the body converts food into energy. The rate of metabolism can influence weight gain or loss. So you may have had friends who they've stayed skinny regardless of how much they eat. And you're like, man, they have a fast metabolism. And then you may have other friends who just can't seem to take the weight off. And they're like, man, I just have a slow metabolism. Turns out you can actually affect your metabolism through several different things. One of them is activity. So you can definitely increase your metabolism by increasing your activity, because generally metabolism does also broadly cover the amount of activity that you have throughout the day, because you are using energy in order to be active. And the second thing is the amount of food that you consume or energy that you take in. If you take in chronically less energy, so less calories, than you burn on a basic level for your body size, your height, your gender, your age, things like that. If you're not eating enough calories, your metabolism actually is really good at staying equal. And so it's going to drop down the amount of energy it's burning, decrease your metabolism so that it matches your intake. Contrarily, it will also potentially increase a little bit as well if you are eating more calories, but don't think that that is going to keep you from gaining weight if you're chronically eating a lot of calories. You'd also have to be more physically active in order for that to work. Number 5, energy balance and weight management, something that we're all interested in, right? The balance between the calories consumed and calories burned impacts weight. So calories in versus calories out, you may have heard. A lot of people are proponents of that only in regards to nutrition and weight loss. I don't necessarily ascribe to that myself, although it is definitely a contributing factor because of different things such as bioavailability with foods, which I may touch on later. If your body consumes more calories than it uses, though, weight gain usually results. Conversely, burning more calories than consumed leads to weight loss. Now, there are some confounding factors that can happen here, such as what I mentioned before, with a decrease in your metabolism due to either disease state or chronic undereating. And so those are things that can confound those general results, or at least what we perceive as those, because if you are decreasing your metabolism due to chronic dieting or yo-yo dieting, going back and forth, or just eating way too little, your body is going to decrease its metabolism. So you're actually not going to burn as much as you think you are when you crunch all the numbers. I'm going to give you a few examples of diet management and disease conditions. So number 1, type 2 diabetes. So there are 2 types of diabetes. Obviously, I think there's actually technically more, but we're just going to go with type 2 for today. Type 1 is where you are born without the ability to produce insulin. And that means that your cells are unable to use this molecule insulin to then uptake sugar into the cell in order to be able to have energy to live. So if you do not produce insulin, your cells cannot take in energy and they will therefore die. So it's a very, very critical condition that obviously anyone who's born with that has insulin that they are taking all the time because it is important for keeping you alive. On the other side, type 2 diabetes is essentially acquired diabetes that can happen for a variety of reasons, but you become insulin resistant, which means that your cells have a harder time in recognizing the insulin that you are producing, using that in order to be able to open those gates for the sugar to come into the cells to be able to give them the energy they need in order to live, right? So that's where people will have to take insulin in order to increase the total amount of insulin in your blood so that those receptors that are fewer on those cells are able to pick up more of the insulin and then take that blood or that sugar into your cells. So that's the basic idea behind type 2 diabetes and supplementing in insulin. Now, a balanced diet can help manage blood sugar levels in type 2 diabetes because this usually involves consuming a diet that's rich in whole grains, lean proteins, fruits, and vegetables, while limiting processed foods and sugary drinks. So this is where I'll talk a little bit about bioavailability. So foods actually have a different amount that they are able to be absorbed in our body. We don't absorb everything. Obviously, if we absorbed everything we took in, we would not have stools in the bathroom, right? And I'm not talking about the stools that you sit on. And so because we do not absorb everything, there's a certain amount of those things that we don't absorb. One of them I'm sure you've heard of is fiber. So with whole grains, the difference between whole grains and processed grains or highly processed grains is that whole grains still have a lot of the fiber intact as well as some of the other things. And because of that, it allows for those carbohydrates or those sugar molecules, right, that are in the grains to be processed into your body more slowly. This results in less of a spike, which carbohydrate counting and glycemic index based diets can also help manage those levels, because carbs, again, are the transition into sugar, which the blood sugar values are what make type 2 diabetes, right? Sugar in the blood. And so if you are eating more whole grains as opposed to processed foods, then the bioavailability of those foods is lower. So you're not going to have such a spike in your carbohydrate intake. This also, to a certain extent, again, the reason why I don't ascribe to the calories in versus calories out directly, as a general rule, we do, but there is a difference between, say, a whole corn that you're eating, not just a single kernel, right? But if you're eating a whole corn versus a highly processed, let's say, a corn tortilla, there's a big difference between the amounts of calories and nutrients that you're going to be getting in with the whole corn versus the corn tortilla. You're going to get more, you're going to absorb more of the corn tortilla faster than you are of the actual corn, because it's not the whole food. It is processed through, things have been broken down already, and you're going to be taking more of that in. It's also going to result in a higher spike in your blood sugar. I don't have the numbers there, but you can look those up. So those are some important concepts for type 2 diabetes management. Number 2, cardiovascular disease. Heart diseases can be managed by consuming a diet that's low in trans fat, which is an unhealthy form of fat that they found out years ago. Trans fats were generally produced in the process of commercial food production. And it turned out that those trans fats, though they are more shelf stable just because of the molecule, the way that it works, it's having to do with carbohydrate bonds on the opposite side versus the same side. So it looks like that versus this, which makes those molecules be able to stick together more easily. And that results in a more shelf stable type of food. It's also more along the lines of things that end up being solid at room temperature versus not solid. So like olive oils versus lard or something along those lines. So those trans fats, they ended up finding that your body can't process those, and they can be factors that increase disease states. So having a diet that's low in trans fats is very important for cardiovascular disease, as well as saturated fats, which again, saturated shelf stable type stuff, so solid at room temperature, and omega-3 and cholesterol, because having more cholesterol, they have had some correlation between higher dietary cholesterol and higher blood cholesterol, and high in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and omega-3 fatty acids. So we're seeing a trend here, right? So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, omega-3 fatty acids, those seem to be things that are good for most disease states, right? The DASH diet, which is called Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, and the Mediterranean diets are also well-known dietary plans that can help manage heart health. Disease number 3, celiac disease. So this is a condition where the consumption of gluten, which is a specific protein molecule that's found in wheat, barley, rye, and actually several other type of grains, triggers an immune response that's damaging to the small intestine. So this is an autoimmune disease. And the primary treatment for celiac disease is a strict gluten-free diet, which helps to manage those symptoms and promotes healing of the digestive tract because you're not aggravating it all the time. So years ago, this was a lot more difficult to manage because there weren't as many options, and it was just essentially you had to stay away from most anything processed, most anything grains, and you had to just eat mainly whole vegetables, fruits, and lean meats, maybe some dairy as well, but you just had to be very careful and you had to stay away from this. Now things are a lot more accessible, which is wonderful because there's a lot of snack foods out there, although on the other side, that may not be so great. There's a lot of snack foods, there's a lot of gluten-free breads and other things like that, which can make it more easily attainable or sustainable, as a diet, because you have more variety available to you. Though, because it has now a lot more snacks, that may also increase your capacity to gain weight. So there's a lot of options there, though, for a gluten-free diet, but that is essentially one of those things that you have to stay away from. So apart from those other things I mentioned, you'd have to stay away from the whole grains, at least most of the grains that have gluten in them. These examples do show, however, that just by adjusting one's diet, you can help manage different disease conditions. But it's still important to know that dietary changes should be made under the guidance of a healthcare professional or registered dietitian who can provide personalized advice based on your individual nutritional needs and health conditions. Second thing we'll talk about is common diets, their benefits and their downsides. For example, Mediterranean diet, which is high in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, has been shown to reduce the risk of heart disease. On the other hand, the ketogenic diet, which is low in carbs and high in fat, can lead to quick weight loss, which everybody wants, right? But it may be hard to maintain and could lead to nutrient deficiencies. So we'll get into those diets a little bit more, but we'll start with the Mediterranean diet. Number one, Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is based on the traditional foods that people used to eat in countries like Italy and Greece back in the 1960s. Some of the benefits of the Mediterranean diet lead to heart health, right, which is numerous studies that have been linked to Mediterranean diet with reduced risk factors for cardiovascular disease. You also have benefit of weight loss because this diet includes plenty of filling foods and fewer processed items. You'll feel fuller and you won't eat as much, as well as the processed foods we talked about earlier, bioavailability, and how they are more calorie dense versus nutrient dense, which can lead to weight gain. And so eating less of those processed foods can result in some weight loss. Another benefit of the Mediterranean diet is prevention of diabetes. It may also help prevent type 2 diabetes and manage an existing condition due to its emphasis on whole foods and complex carbohydrates as opposed to simple carbohydrates. Some downsides of the Mediterranean diet are the cost, because depending on your geographic location and access to fresh produce, it may be more expensive to follow. It also has a lack of clear guidelines because since it's based on the traditional eating habits of several different countries, there can be a variation in recommendations, potentially leading to some confusion. But if this is something that's sustainable for you, having something that's not quite all hashed out, but you can do consistently for a long period of time, that's going to result in better results for you than something where it is very specific, very strict, but you can't stick to it. Number two, ketogenic or keto diet. So I have personally done this before. I do see benefits for the ketogenic diet. However, it is pretty difficult. We'll get into that a little bit, but essentially the ketogenic diet is a low carbohydrate, high fat diet. It drastically reduces carbohydrate intake. Generally, for a very clinical strict carbohydrate diet or keto diet, it means dropping those carbohydrates down to between 20 and 30 grams per day. Now, comparison, generally a normal American diet has between 200 to 300 or more grams of carbohydrates, which is substantially lower. So that can be very difficult. It replaces those carbohydrates with fat, putting the body into a metabolic state called ketosis, where your liver creates these little molecules called ketones that essentially are replacements for glucose or sugar. Some of the benefits of the ketogenic diet are weight loss. It can help reduce weight by forcing the body to burn fat for energy instead of carbohydrates. Also, in that state of ketosis, that's one of the benefits of it, is it turns the primary fuel source from carbohydrate to fat. And it also may help control seizures because the keto diet was initially developed to treat epilepsy, and it has been shown to significantly reduce seizures in children where medication was ineffective. Now, there's a lot of controversy around the keto diet, and there's actually a lot more science that's being put into this by different groups. You may have noticed that if you're in the fitness space or the health space, exogenous ketones, which are ketones that you can drink, they have actually found that you are able to manufacture ketones that your liver normally produces, and drinking those puts those into your blood, kind of like eating sugar, right? Puts the sugar into your blood. And the state of ketosis is not dependent upon a keto diet. It is more actually dependent upon the number of ketones that are present in your blood, because those ketones cross the blood-brain barrier, feed your brain as well as some other vital organs, and allows you those benefits of clearer thinking, better sleep, better energy, being able to lose more fat weight. So weight management. It also helps with some renal protective properties. The ketones themselves do, as well as just general health. So you may have seen those, the ketones that are exogenous that you can drink. So that is something else that has been coming out that doesn't require you to stick to the keto diet. But back to the keto diet. Some of the downsides of the keto diet are nutrient deficiency, because it restricts several food groups that you might not get enough of certain nutrients, especially those vegetables or complex carbohydrates, missing some of the foods and some of the minerals and nutrients in those, which are important for your health. You also may get the keto flu. So the keto flu, some people experience fatigue, brain fog, and trouble sleeping when they first start the diet. And those symptoms are often referred to as the keto flu. A lot of those pertain to the type of, or the amount of electrolytes that you are not getting as well as some of those other nutrients, and then just the adjusting time between essentially starving your brain and your body of its primary fuel source it's been operating off of, which is glucose or carbohydrate, and switching it over for the time that it takes for your liver to produce those ketones to then feed the rest of your body. So that is definitely a downside of that diet. There's also potential long-term health risks, because long-term adherence to the keto diet can lead to potential risks like kidney stones, osteoporosis, and increased levels of uric acid just because of the foods that you're eating, which could lead to gout or kidney disease. So the keto diet with the renal or kidney protective effects of ketones may be counterbalanced or outweighed by the fact that you're getting nutrient deficiencies or increased uric acid due to the types of foods that you're eating. Number 3, vegetarian and vegan diet. So vegetarianism involves eschewing meat and fish, so not eating those, while vegans avoid all animal products, including dairy and eggs. This is probably one reason I could never do veganism, because I love dairy and eggs myself. But like I said before, it's whatever will work for you and for your lifestyle. Some of the benefits for these conditions or these eating habits is heart health. Vegetarian diets can promote heart health, as they are typically low in saturated fat and cholesterol. Weight management. With both vegetarian and vegan diets, you can have weight loss due to their focus on fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. And also you can have a good environmental impact, because plant-based diets can help reduce your carbon footprint, since the meat industry is a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Some downsides, though, of these diets is nutrient deficiencies. If you don't plan properly, these diets can lack essential nutrients such as vitamin B12, which is important in energy metabolism, iron, which is important in getting enough oxygen to your cells, because iron is a constituent of hemoglobin, which is part of your red blood cells that binds oxygen and transports that throughout the body. Calcium, so that can lead to an anemic state, by the way. Calcium, which is important in your bones, as well as conductivity between your nerves and muscles, and also nerves and other nerves. It's super important for that release of action potential from one nerve to the other nerve to allow for communication between yourselves. So there's a fact where my action potential is not working very well, but that can contribute to that. So iodine is also super important. We don't have this issue in America for the most part, because the government actually added iodine to salt in order to avoid the condition of goiters, which is where it swells up some of the glands around your throat. It can, it's definitely just, it's a disease condition. It's not good. And then omega-3 fatty acids, which are very important for just overall health, organ function, and such. Another downside is that you can have difficulty eating out, which can contribute to that lack of ability to maintain it and to stick to it, because sometimes, depending on where you go, it can be difficult to find vegetarian and especially vegan options at restaurants or social gatherings. As with any diet, these should not be adopted without consulting your healthcare provider, especially with those who have pre-existing health conditions. But it's also important to note that what works for one person might not work for another, as everybody's body does respond to different dietary changes differently. Third thing we'll talk about is lifestyle changes and their impact on nutrition. So small changes like eating more fruits and vegetables, reducing processed food intake, and drinking more water can have a significant impact on your overall health. These small changes can make a big difference in your overall health. And here's 5 simple ones that can yield significant health benefits. Number 1, incorporate physical activity into your daily routine. I know lots of people have said it, and it is important that physical activity is key to maintaining a healthy lifestyle. There's more than just the reasons for burning calories by moving. It actually has a lot to do with intercellular communication and overall health in your body. But try to aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise, such as brisk walking, cycling, or swimming most days of the week. And it doesn't have to be all at once. There's actually a Japanese study that was working on walking and the benefits of walking, and seeing if walking, which is, again, a moderate-ish intensity exercise, depending on how fast you're walking, not meandering, right, actually walking, to see if you would get the benefits of 30 minutes of exercise with walking per day that you would get by taking that amount of time and breaking it up into intervals. Turns out that you can break it up into smaller chunks, such as at least 10 minutes per session. So if you do 3 10-minute sessions of walking, that is equivalent. You still get the benefits that you would get if you did a full 30 minutes in one stint. Regular exercise also helps you to control your weight. It helps to reduce your risk of heart disease, which is a major reason why the American Heart Association recommends that we do, as well as the American College of Sports Medicine. It also helps to protect your heart from heart attacks, and it helps to decrease the severity of heart attacks should you have it, which is the main reason why they suggest doing the physical activity at least for 3 days in a row. Because if you do that, it brings down your risk and the severity of a heart attack by 40%, which can be the difference between life and death. And it also helps to improve your mental health and mood, which is super important. Number two, let's practice mindful eating. So I spoke about mindful eating earlier. One of those things being chewing your food, slowing down, because if you are mindful of what you eat, you not only get to experience your food more, but you get to be more attentive to hunger and fullness cues. This means that you're not going to overeat as much. You're also probably going to just enjoy your food more, but you may find that you appreciate your meals more and you actually feel more satisfied with the food that you eat versus eating something and then feeling like you need to snack later. So if you're having trouble with snacking, try being a bit more mindful of how you're eating. And I do have a video that I talk about mindful eating on my Facebook channel, but essentially I'll give you a few tips for mindful eating. So making sure that you slow down, chew your food more, try to chew at least 30 times per bite to decrease the load on the rest of your digestive system. Also, try to limit other distractions while you're eating. So if you can, sit at a table with a plate. Make sure that you are eating, being attentive of the food that you are eating, how it tastes. Think about the texture, think about the quality, think about the flavors, and try not to have screens in front of you while you're eating your food, such as television screen, phone screen, and other things that are distracting. This will help you to be able to be more attentive and more present. 3, prioritize sleep. So quality of sleep is super important to health, and as much as diet and exercise is. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Create a sleep-friendly environment. This is something that would be dark, quiet, and cool. So something around maybe 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And maintain a regular sleep schedule, even on weekends. It'll help your body. Lack of sleep can impact your physical health and cognitive function. So make it harder to think and function and do your job or other activities that you do, which can make you also more susceptible to stress and health issues, because stress is a big contributor to a lot of negative health conditions and states. Number 4, stay hydrated. Aim to drink at least 8 glasses of water a day, though this can vary based on your body size, activity level, and climate. If you're in a hotter climate, you're going to need to drink more water because you're sweating more of it off. If you are more active, you're going to need to drink more water because you're sweating more of it off. If you have a larger body, you have more water that you need to have in order for your other metabolic functions to work. So you need to drink more water than somebody who is half your size, right? So you want to make sure that you are drinking enough water for those situations. Since water does aid in digestion, absorption, your circulation, the creation of saliva, which is important so you don't feel dry mouth all the time, as well as transportation of nutrients and maintenance of your body temperature. So if you're dehydrated, you may overheat easier, which is not a good condition. I have had that before and it's no fun, so don't go there, just drink your water. Keeping well hydrated also helps your skin look healthier. So if you're about looks, make sure you drink enough water, and it can aid in weight loss efforts since it does help again with digestion, absorption, circulation, all those kind of things. Number 5, foster social connections. So social connections are actually very important in mental health and emotional health. There's a longitudinal or long-term study that was done by Harvard called the Happiness Study. Look it up. It is amazing how much it impacts your happiness and your overall health to have good social connections and friends and people who are close to you. So spend time with loved ones, nurture your relationships, and try to make some new connections. If in-person interactions are not possible for you, utilize video calls and social media and other digital communication tools. I do highly recommend person-to-person interaction if you can do it in any way, because it is so much better than just doing it on a digital device. Feeling connected to others does contribute to your personal self-esteem, provides a sense of purpose, and also helps combat feelings of loneliness and depression, which in a post-COVID era are very important. Depression, loneliness has increased a lot due to that isolation. Remember that change does take time. And it's important not to get discouraged if progress seems slow. Celebrate each small victory that you have and keep in mind that the goal is long-term sustainable change. This journey is about making a series of manageable and maintainable, healthy lifestyle changes that will ultimately lead to better health for you and better overall well-being. 4th, we'll explore ways of eating and their benefits and downsides. For instance, intermittent fasting, when you cycle between periods of eating and fasting, can lead to weight loss and improved metabolic health. However, it may not be suitable for everyone, especially those with certain health conditions. So let's talk about 3 different ways of eating. We're going to talk about intermittent fasting, paleo diet, and plant-based diet. Number 1, intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting involves cycling between periods of eating and fasting, thus the intermittent part. Common methods include the 16-8 method, which is 16 hours fasting or not eating, and an 8-hour eating window each day. There's the 5-2 method, which is eating normally 5 days a week while restricting calories to between 500 and 600 on 2 of those days, the other 2 days. And then the eat, stop, eat method, which is a 24-hour fast once or twice a week. The benefits of intermittent fasting can be weight loss. It can help to lose weight and belly fat without having to consciously restrict calories, which is definitely beneficial for you if you have trouble with restricting calories. Can help with insulin resistance, so that type 2 diabetes condition, because it can reduce insulin resistance, which helps to lower blood sugar levels, which is important in those diabetic conditions. Can also help inflammation, because studies have shown that intermittent fasting can help reduce inflammation and promote better health. Some of the downsides of intermittent fasting, though, are hunger, as it does involve periods of fasting. Hunger is the most common side effect. And if you have trouble with feeling hungry and not eating, then this can be something that will keep you from being able to adhere to this type of eating style. Another downside is overeating. So there is a risk of overeating during periods where you can eat, which could negate any of those benefits. Because if you are eating way too many calories due to the fasting period, and now, oh, I can eat everything now, and you're eating 3,000 calories when you should be eating 1,800, that will definitely negate those benefits. Number 2, the paleo diet. So the paleo diet, or the Paleolithic diet, it's based on the idea of eating like our ancestors did during the Paleolithic era. Involves eating whole foods that could be obtained through hunting and gathering, like lean meats, fish, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and avoiding other things that we wouldn't have access to in those conditions, such as processed foods, grains, dairy, and refined sugars. Some of the benefits of the paleo diet are weight loss due to its low carb nature and emphasis on whole foods. So it can lead to significant weight loss because of the type of foods you're eating. So definitely some things to gather from that. It can also help to improve glucose control, or blood sugar control, by improving your glucose tolerance more than a Mediterranean diet in individuals who have ischemic heart disease. So that's where you're not getting enough blood to your heart. Some downsides of the paleo diet, it can lead to nutrient deficiencies by excluding grains and dairy. So you might miss out on some essential nutrients like calcium and vitamin D. So if you do the paleo diet, make sure that you do supplement in vitamin D and you're getting enough calcium. Some of the difficulty as well is that it can be hard to follow since it's a very restricted diet. So if you cannot follow it, there's no point in doing it. So find something that does work for you. Number 3, plant-based diet. A plant-based diet involves consuming mostly or only foods that come from plants, including fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, oils, whole grains, legumes, and beans. So just like a vegetarian and vegan diets that I mentioned earlier, plant-based diet is beneficial for heart health. So it's associated with lower risk of heart disease. It can help with weight management by reducing your risk of obesity and helping you maintain a healthy weight due to those whole foods. It can also help to lower your cancer risk. It may reduce certain types of cancer by eating a plant-based diet that you would not have by eating a diet that is more diverse, that includes meats. Some of the downsides, though, is nutrient deficiencies. You do need to plan carefully in order to get enough protein, vitamin B12, iron, and omega-3 fatty acids if you are eating a plant-based diet, because a lot of those, especially protein and the varieties of essential proteins or essential amino acids, are not necessarily all available in one type of food with a plant-based diet. You may find that you get all of the essential amino acids or the essential protein molecules in a slab of meat, but you are not going to get all of those in one particular vegetable. So you need to make sure that you're getting a variety of foods and you're planning accordingly in order to get those essential, which means your body doesn't make them, amino acids. Now, before adopting any new way of eating, it is, again, important to talk to your healthcare provider or dietitian, especially if you have a pre-existing health condition. And different diets, they suit different people. So what works for one person might not work for another person. And the most effective diet for you is the one that is going to be maintainable, sustainable in the long term, because that is where you find those results. We're not looking for a 90 days total body change, and then in another 90 days, you'll change back to the way that you were before. Sustainable, consistent, that's what you're looking for. Your body it'll like you better if you're not putting it through all kinds of hell, right? So just go ahead and do something that is sustainable and maintainable for you. Make some small changes that will result in, small changes in your habits that will result in large outcomes and large changes in the long run. Lastly, we'll discuss optimal diets for certain medical conditions and health goals. So those with diabetes, diet high in fiber, low in saturated fat can help manage blood sugar levels and improve overall health. Now, I do want to mention I'm not a medical professional, and the information in this section by no means should replace recommendations from your physician. This is all information that is available and readily accessible online, so feel free to look it up, but make sure that if you have these disease conditions that you are consulting a physician regarding your management of it. Condition number 1, diabetes. So I know we've talked a lot about diabetes already, but the primary goal for a diet for diabetes is to maintain blood sugar levels. A diet that's rich in fiber with a balance of carbohydrates, protein, healthy fats, and lower in processed foods is generally recommended. The specific approach called the plate method, which is on Harvard's website, so feel free to search Harvard plate method, suggests filling half of your plate with non-starchy vegetables, a quarter with protein, and a quarter with a grain or starchy food such as rice or potatoes. Carbohydrate counting or using the glycemic index, which is the amount of sugar that is in certain foods, may also be helpful in managing blood glucose levels. Now, diabetes management can also benefit from regular meals and snacks to avoid blood sugar spikes and crashes, because the whole idea is to keep everything as level as possible. And even when you don't have diabetes, they have shown that if you are able to keep your blood sugar levels from being drastically high and lower throughout the day, and you can keep them more level, that's actually going to result in more longevity, more health overall, and just general length of life. So that's something that maybe all of us should think about a little bit. Reducing the consumption of sugary beverages is also another effective strategy. Number 2, cardiovascular disease. So the dietary approaches to stop hypertension, or the DASH diet and Mediterranean diet, are both recommended for managing heart disease. The DASH diet includes a lot of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, low-fat dairy, and limits foods that are high in saturated fats and sugar. Mediterranean diet has plenty of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, and olive oil. And fish, poultry, and dairy are included in moderation, but red meat and added sugars are generally very limited. Both of these diets focus on consuming fiber-rich and nutrient-dense foods, not calorie-dense foods, nutrient-dense foods that can help lower blood pressure and LDL, or bad cholesterol levels. If you want more information, go on to the American Heart Association. They've got lots of information on healthy living, eating smart, and the diet and lifestyle for DASH as well as Mediterranean diets. Number 3, chronic kidney disease. So dietary recommendations for CKD, or chronic kidney disease, aim to slow the progression of this disease and manage the symptoms. A dietitian may recommend limiting certain nutrients, including sodium, potassium, and phosphorus, which can build up in the blood in the chronic kidney disease state. Protein intake may also need to be monitored, as too much can cause waste buildup in the blood, but too little can lead to malnutrition. So the diet should still be rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, but need to manage the amount of protein. Because nutritional needs can vary greatly depending on the stage of chronic kidney disease, individual dietary recommendations should be made with the help of a healthcare provider or a dietitian. You can search the National Kidney Foundation if you want more information on this. It is also important to remember that while diet plays a crucial role in managing these conditions, it is just one part of comprehensive care. Regular exercise, medication if prescribed, and regular check-ins with your healthcare provider are also essential. All right, now let's talk about adopting a mindset towards nutrition as lifestyle eating and not dieting. This means that focusing on making sustainable changes to your eating habits that you can maintain in the long term are more important, rather than following restrictive diets that may not be sustainable. So essentially, you want to make sure that you are going with lifestyle changes, not dieting. Here's some few options I wanted to give you. I'm going to put them in the comments down below. But essentially, you can, for Mediterranean or weight loss, you can use the low-carb Mediterranean chicken and tomato. Found this on tasty.co. There's actually a lot of good recipes on there. There's also Mediterranean loaded French fry salad. For keto, there's a keto bacon, cauliflower mac and cheese, higher carbohydrate, higher fiber diet. There's a healthy and hearty green super soup. So there's a lot of really great diets on there, a lot of great recipes. And then if you're looking for diabetes friendly recipes, there's also a jazzy orange glazed drumsticks and blueberry banana yogurt popcorn bars. So a lot of really tasty recipes. There's a lot of amazing things out there. I will put the links for those in the comments down below, so feel free to check those out. Now, remember, the goal is not to follow a strict diet, but to make sustainable changes to your eating habits that will support your health in the long term. It's about nourishing your body with the nutrients it needs, enjoying your food, and maintaining a positive relationship with food. In addition to these recipes that I mentioned before, there are many other ways to incorporate healthy eating into your lifestyle. For example, you could try meal prepping, which is preparing your meals for the week ahead of time, which can make you have healthier choices, right? Because you've prepped already, and it can also save time during the week. Or you could try growing your own vegetables. If you've got a green thumb or love playing in the dirt, this can be a fun and rewarding way to improve your diet. And it can also help you save money during that harvest period, right? So it is a great option as well. But that is all for today's episode. Join us next time as we explore the third pillar of lifelong functional health, which is mobility. Until then, stay healthy and stay functional. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Functional for Life podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, your health is your wealth, and we're here to help you achieve that. See you next time.